My name is Margarita Velandia. You're going to remember my name, especially with the bar right next to us, right? So I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics at the University of Tennessee, and I'm also the lead of objective number 2. Just to refresh your memory, if you have been here before, and for those who are new, objective number 2 aims to evaluate the economic feasibility of adopting specific technologies, including potting machines, whole row pruners, fertilizer dispensers, and fertilizer applicators. We're also aiming to evaluate changes in workers' productivity, wellness, and satisfaction associated with the adoption of some of those technologies. All right, so as an economist and not a plant scientist and not an engineer, getting new into this industry, I realized that there is not such a thing as a representative nursery. Every nursery looks completely, I used to work with row crops and tomato crop. It's like, this is a completely different business. So what we understood is that we needed to take a case study approach on the economic evaluation of these studies. So far, we have completed 3 case studies, one for a fertilizer dispenser, one for a boom sprayer, and we just completed one for the potting machine. All right, so this is to complement what Amy, Dr. Fulcher actually just presented. So, and you can, if you want to see how the final product looks like, so these are the case studies we're producing. So for the fertilizer dispenser, what we did is basically, thanks to James from EC3 Nursery and the data they collected there, we use a very simple analysis. In economics, it's called a partial budget analysis. What does that mean? That you're looking simply, because this is a very low-cost technology, we're talking about $154.50 if you purchase it directly from the manufacturer. So we simply look at the short-term impact on the additional expenses, which is simply you purchase the Pro 35 fertilizer dispenser, and the reduced expenses associated with what? Reduced labor and reduced fertilizer applied, if that's the case. So this is just showing the data, summarizing the data that Amy collected, and we translated that into a scale of 10,000 plants per year. So what we're looking at is whether those additional expenses of purchasing those Pro 35 fertilizer dispensers will be compensated or by the reduced expenses, which are labor and fertilizer cost savings. What we concluded is that scale matters. So in these last 2 tables that I'm showing you here, that's showing you the net changes in net profits, which means are my additional expenses equal or lower or higher than my reduced expenses? This negative number up here shows me that at the 10,000 plants per year using 2 fertilizer dispensers, actually my additional expenses are going to be higher than my reduced expenses. But as soon as I move from the 10,000 to the 50,000 plant scenario, then those additional expenses are actually going to be lower than the savings that I'm doing. So scale matters. That's what we concluded. We, of course, are not showing there any impact on worker retention rates because they're happier or they like applying fertilizer not with the spoon and bucket, but with the Pro 35 fertilizer dispensers. That is not captured in this analysis. So the second case study that we concluded, this is again based on Cherry Lake. It's a Cherry Lake case study. So what we did is we evaluated transitioning from only granular herbicide to a combination of granular and over-the-top liquid herbicide application. What was unique about this case study is that they actually repurposed a pesticide sprayer for herbicide application by converting it into a boom sprayer. Now, what I'm showing you as summary in this slide is the labor savings and the herbicide cost savings from transitioning from only granular to a combination of granular and over-the-top liquid herbicide application with a boom sprayer. So where do the herbicide cost savings come from? Simple. When they transitioned to over-the-top liquid herbicides, the specific liquid herbicides they were applying were anywhere between 67 and 92% cheaper than their granular formulations. So that's where the herbicide cost savings come. From the labor cost savings, That's also not very difficult to do the math, because they had just a few guys applying the granular herbicide with a gravity flow spreader. And they transitioned from that to a boom sprayer that can apply the herbicide, the liquid herbicide, faster and with fewer workers. Now, at the bottom, we have the fancy analysis that in our trip to Germany and actually talking to growers, when I talk about net present value, they're like, we don't do that. We don't, you economists do that. We don't do that. But basically what it shows me, so this is the scenario of what they call the big boom, which is actually a pesticide sprayer that they repurpose for herbicide application. So the initial investment was $100,000, and with $5,000 in in-house modifications, that's how they converted this into a boom sprayer. I'm not going to go into the details, but why they did that? Because they had performance issues with that pesticide sprayer, and they were not able to solve it. That's why the purpose of it. So the net present value is simple. If it's a positive number, go ahead, invest. That investment is adding value to the owner's wealth. The modified internal rate of return just shows you your return on investment. You want that return higher than the interest rate that you have to pay to investors and lenders. We assume that rate anything above 8% is good. Now, the story of the discounted payback period, which I know you do more about payback period than anything else. When I talk about anything else, they look at me, why are you doing that? It's a payback period. This looks a little bit high. It took 7 years, or it would take 7 years to recover that investment. Why is that? Because they repurposed an initial investment for an alternative use. But they were able to make the best with an investment that it was already $100,000. So what do I do with something that underperformed? But we wanted to run a more realistic analysis, because a boom sprayer, you guys know better than me, it's not going to cost you $100,000. So we contact a manufacturer. They gave us a quote of $7,000 for a similar boom sprayer, and we rerun the analysis showing the net present value still positive, way higher, showing that this investment is adding value to the owner's wealth. And then a rate of return higher than this one, over 20%. And then, of course, it's about a little bit less than 5 years to record that investment. We just completed our potting machine case study. This is a very specific case study. It's a Javo potting machine that is fitting the needs of a medium-scale nursery. And the story that we're telling you is not on the labor-saving side of things. What this nursery wanted to do was increase production without having to double their labor force. So that's why they adopted this potting machine. That case study is going to be coming up probably in the next 2 months. But what I wanted to highlight here is something that every grower wants to see, is the potting rates before and after the potting machine. So we're going for number 1 containers. We're talking about 360 plants per hour. Before the potting machine, they jumped to 1,500 pots per hour with the potting machine. So basically, it's a no-brainer. And as an economist, I'm just putting the numbers down to see how it works. So far, we have disseminated these 2 case studies that you are more than welcome to take copies of these case studies to see what we're doing. We have disseminated that through an in-service training, a field day, and of course, we're going to be talking about these case studies tomorrow here at Cultivate. So where are we at and where are we heading? We need to complete the whole row pruners case studies and the irrigation control system case studies. We are going to be conducting interviews in the summer of 2027 to assess that workers' changes in productivity, wellness, and satisfaction related to the adoption of some of these technologies. And then we're also going to be developing some decision aid tools to help other growers, probably not the ones here, because you already probably adopted all the technologies, but some of those laggers that are still thinking about investing. So we're developing those decision aid tools for them, and we're going to ask for the advisory board members to get us some feedback as we develop those decision aid tools. And with that, if there are any questions, again, feel free to see what we're producing. I'm going to leave a couple of copies here.
All right, we have 3 minutes again for questions for the socioeconomics section that looked at the return on investment and then also labor savings on some of our existing automations already. And then in addition to Cherry Lake retrofitting a boom sprayer to apply herbicide.
Questions, advisory board members.
Please do.
Again, through talking to you guys and also, can you grab that? Yeah, the mic. Through talking to you and then our recent trip to Germany, there was one of the growers in Germany said, what return on investment? We either adopt the technologies or we close the doors. We just don't have the labor. So if we don't adopt the technologies, we don't really talk about labor savings. We talk about we do it or we don't, or we close the doors. When you are making these decisions about investing in new technologies, whether we're talking about drones or other technologies, what are you looking at? Are you looking at payback period? Are you looking at return of investment? Or you just go for it because there's no other way to keep running the business? Brian, you're quiet.
Very true. Sometimes you do not have a choice because you will not have the labor. And I've had this discussion with many other nursery people before. So it doesn't matter what it costs. If the difference is not getting the crop out, then you're either in business or you're not. You'll have to adjust pricing later if possible.
Right. Any other comments?
Just think return on investment is always going to be top of mind for anything that we do. How long is it going to take to recoup that cost?
And then the payback period.
And the payback, yep.
Any other comments? All right. Thank you.
We did ask the growers when we went to visit a lot of the automation in Germany, what they thought about return on investment. Did they look at their net present value? And most of the time they just said, I got with my brother and I cracked open a beer and we decided to do it. Because we have no choice. We don't have the labor and we want to stay in business. We have no choice.